Conversation with the candidates continues right now.
Thank you for clicking on our extended conversation with the candidate, with Republican candidate for president, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida. The next 30 minutes is commercial free. We want to get to as many audience questions here from our Town Hall New Hampshire voters as we possibly can. We're going to start things off with Joan Wentworth.
Good evening, Governor.
Hi.
In Congress, you supported efforts to repeal Obamacare. And as governor, you haven't supported Medicaid expansion. So I would like to know, what role, if any, do you believe government should play in making health care available and affordable for everyone?
Well, it's a great question. So I think right now, if you look at our health care system, the patient has been left behind. The doctor-patient relationship has been left behind. You have big pharmaceutical companies, big insurance companies, and big government have formed an iron triangle. There's a lot of money that gets made. That causes the average person to have to pay more, and indeed it makes it out of reach for the average American. Now, part of what we've done in Florida is, our economy is the #1 economy in the country. Anyone that wants a job, can get a job. And so we've had a lot of able-bodied men mostly who would have qualified for Medicaid expansion, but they're eligible to work in jobs where they can get employer-provided insurance. And we think that is a better model to try to have their own rather than necessarily have government. But we need to reduce the cost of health care. That means you have to change the incentives, but you got to be willing to look at things like big pharma. They cannot continue to just run the show and drive the cost of everything up through the roof. So we are going to work on that iron triangle to try to break that up and return more power to the patient and to the physician. Thank you.
Quick follow-up, Governor. What's a specific thing you'd like to do with quote-unquote big pharma if you're president?
Well, for example, we pay more for drugs in the United States than any other developed country. Why? Because pharmaceutical companies, they do spend money to develop these things, but then the other countries get them cheaper and they charge us higher to be able to recoup that intellectual property and the investment. I think that should be spread around all these developed countries. Why should we be the only ones that are paying through our nose and they get to pay less? And so there are things that, in that sense, we should do. I actually worked with the Trump administration. There was a provision of law that allowed states to buy prescription drugs from Canada. They were the same drugs, and they're like 25% the cost. And I could have saved hundreds of millions of dollars in Florida. Trump administration ended. Biden said they were going to do it. Here we are 2.5, 3 years later. They still have not approved our ability to purchase those drugs. And so I just think that the way pharmaceuticals have driven the cost, we're never going to get the cost under control if we continue with this same failed model.
Next question from Benjamin Bolger.
Governor DeSantis, really great to see you.
Sure.
You attended Yale for your undergraduate studies and then later Harvard Law School, two very impressive institutions. My question is, should elite academic institutions end all forms of affirmative action and any admission preferences for alumni and or wealthy donors?
Yeah, I think that they should do that, but I think there is a difference between that and race, because race is prescribed in the Constitution. When they're getting all this federal money and working at the time, and even Harvard that have massive endowments, they get massive federal money. You can't discriminate on the basis of race. That is in our Constitution, and that's something that we have to honor. Those other things, those are more discretionary, and I agree they can be consistent and do that, but I don't think that those would implicate the Constitution. Incidentally, when I was running for Congress, I showed up at Yale. I'd never been to New England in my life. I got recruited to play baseball, and I'm up there, and I showed up my first day with flip-flops, jean shorts, and a T-shirt. Let me tell you, the kids from Exeter and Andover were not dressed like that. I was the fish out of the water. It was kind of a culture shock for me. And I didn't even know colleges were liberal at the time. I mean, I was so green, but I got to see, some of this really militant leftism. Yale's motto was for God, for country, for Yale. And I'd be in class and they would attack God, attack the country. And I'm like, that's not the values that I want. And so when I first ran for office, people like the fact in Florida, oh, you're a military veteran, Iraq, all this stuff. You got a nice, wife, whatever, all this stuff, young family. But they're like, man, I don't know about Harvard and Yale. Like, are you one of those guys? And I said, listen, I'm one of the few people that have gone through both Harvard and Yale and came out more conservative than when I went in. That is not easy to do.
Thank you.
Next question comes from Charles Jesse.
Hello, Governor. We've already heard today about a few of the Florida-based laws and policies that you would like to extend to the United States. Which policies and laws really stick with the states, and which other policies would you extend to the U.S.?
Well, I think that we'll keep with the Constitution. The powers delegated under the proposed Constitution James Madison wrote are few and defined. Those remaining to the states are numerous and indefinite. So yes, there's things we've done in Florida we're really proud of. They're just not necessarily going to be as applicable. There's other things in Florida that we've done, that would be applicable. But I would say the most thing that's applicable is just the approach to governing. We have a situation where we have the second lowest per capita debt to person ratio in America, second lowest tax per capita in America. We run big budget surpluses, and we've paid down almost a quarter of our outstanding state debt. I vetoed wasteful spending throughout my time as governor. Why can't we take that same fiscally conservative approach to Washington and discipline the Congress and make sure that the Congress stops spending us into oblivion? If they put a bloated bill on your desk, as president, you have every right to veto that bill, send it back to them, and tell them to do better. So that's an approach we would definitely take. Some of the stuff we've done with respect to, say, education. We've eliminated critical race theory in our K through 12 schools. We've said we're not going to have gender ideology where they're telling a second grader they can change genders or things like that. That's not appropriate. But the curriculum is a state and local issue. We're not going to develop a national curriculum because I think I could do a better job nationally than probably Oakland and San Francisco would do. But the minute the Democrats get in, then they're going to overtake my curriculum in Florida, and I wouldn't want to do that. So stick with the Constitution where the federal government, has the authority and the power. Use it robustly. Do good, strong policy, but where it leaves it to the states, so we'll be doing things like getting the Department of Education off the back of the state and local school districts, and I think that's appropriate.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next question comes from Thalia Flores.
Welcome, Governor.
Yes.
What qualities and qualifications will you expect in your cabinet and your administration, and how will you set the example as president?
That is an excellent question, because at the end of the day, you've got to have humility as a leader to know you can't do it by yourself. You can make the best decisions in the world. You can have the best vision in the world. If you don't have a cadre of people surrounding you who share the vision and are willing to work hard to implement the agenda, none of this is going to matter. The swamp will eat your lunch. And so what I want are people that understand, look, we're the insurgent force in Washington when we get in there. The bureaucracy doesn't want to give up power. The media is not going to like what we're doing. The left isn't going to like it. And there's going to be a lot of old guard Republicans. They like the way D.C. operates. Right now, 5 of the 8 wealthiest counties in our country are suburbs of Washington, D.C. How does that happen? It happens because there's power, patronage, and a lot of money spent up there. So we want to take that power and bring it back to the American people. Now, when you do that, you're going to face opposition. So I need people that are going to have a backbone. I need people that are in it for the right reasons. I need people that are not going to try to be loved by official Washington. Because if you're a strong attorney general and you're turning the DOJ inside and out, which we need to do, if you're getting the FBI in line, which we need to do, you're going to face blowback. They're going to attack you. The newspapers will attack you. The NBC, CNN, they're going to attack you. So not everyone is cut out for that. Me, I view it as positive feedback when they're attacking me. Because if you're over the target, that's when you're taking the flak. And if you weren't effective, they would not even bother attacking you. So you got to have people that understand, this is not going to be easy. It's going to be turbulence. But keep your eye on true north. And that goes for Attorney General. You're going to have a new FBI director with me on day one. You're going to have somebody, the Secretary of Defense, that is going to work to get rid of the wokeness that's gone on in the military, the social experimentation. Military needs to focus on mission. That's when I was there, we focused on mission. They're not focusing on mission first, and now recruiting is in the toilet. So we've got to do better on all that. But you got to have that recognition. You got to be tough. You got to dig in, and you can't give an inch.
Thank you.
Yep.
Governor, am I correct in understanding you recently said you might consider RFK Jr. for the CDC?
No, that was misreported. I was asked whether I consider him for vice president. I said, look, I agree with them on Fauci and the lockdowns and some of the stuff with the medical swamp, but ultimately he's a liberal on 90% of issues, and I'm not going to choose a liberal as vice president. I was like, let him go after these organizations, but that wasn't that he would head the organizations. It's like, I like the fact that he's willing to hold Fauci accountable. No, very few Democrats have been willing to come out and say COVID lockdowns were a mistake. Fauci's policies were destructive. Locking kids out of school like they did in California and Illinois for a year was incredibly damaging. And the reason why Florida is #1 for net in-migration, #1 economy, all these things, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the big reasons is we fought back against that. We fought back against Fauci. We fought back against 2 different administrations to keep the state free, to keep our kids in school, to keep our businesses open. We're proud that we took that stand, but I think there's too many people that act like, oh, well, that's in the past, don't worry about it. Well, here's the thing. If there's no accountability for what was done wrong, they're going to try to do it again in the future, and we can never let this happen in our country ever again.
Next question comes from Laura Landerman-Garber.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. I appreciate that very much. We all do. This question is tough for me to ask, so I apologize in advance if I get a little choked up. My family lives in Florida, in southern Florida. They live in a religious Jewish community. And my family, like many families there, including the little ones, and I have a lot of little ones, they have to take incredible precautions against the rising anti-Semitic attacks that are happening right in their neighborhoods. It's really heartbreaking and tragic to me. I apologize. Recently, maybe in the last 2 months, there was a gathering of some of your supporters, or say they're your supporters.
They say, I don't think
They
that they
say
are.
your
Yep.
supporters, and they had flags that had DeSantis 2024. They also had Nazi swastika flags, the flags that tore my family and 6 million and then 10 million people to death. What would you say to my family and to my grandchildren? Please, sir, can you tell me what you would say to them directly? They're little.
Sure. Well, first of all, when they're doing that, understand those are not true supporters of mine. That is an operation to try to link me to something so that it smears me. I can tell you what we've done since I've been governor. We've put in $12 million for security at Jewish day schools because we're not going to let those schools be attacked. We beefed up Holocaust education standards. We have the strongest Holocaust education standards in the entire country. I gave the Florida Medal of Freedom to Ben Ferencz, the last surviving prosecutor at Nuremberg. He's since passed away, but he was somebody that we looked up to, and we're proud that he was a Floridian. We've enacted universal school choice so that parents can send their kids to Jewish day schools and to other schools, which we think are important. I signed the first bill in America to go after anti-Semitism in our universities. I actually signed that in the American Embassy in Jerusalem in 2019, and we said, listen, we're not going to let our universities become a hotbed of anti-Semitism. We're going to treat that just like we treat racism, and we led the way on that. And most recently, I was in Israel for the 75th anniversary. I keynoted an event at the Museum of Tolerance, and I signed another piece of legislation to go after people that are commandeering property of others, including synagogues, to do things like show swastikas. So we're going to hold them accountable. I said when I was running we'd be the most pro-Israel state in America. I delivered on that, and we are the #1 state for Jewish in-migration of any state in this country. So we've gotten all those policies right, and what I would say is there are people that are doing things like that. They are trying to divide by using that as a weapon against me. Those were not my supporters, because if they were my supporters, they would be on the side of every step I've taken. There's been nobody that's been stronger on these issues in any part of the country than me. We're proud of that, and as president, We're going to fight organizations like the United Nations when they target Israel. We're going to fight against the BDS movement when they try to single out Israel as the world's only Jewish state. We're going to go after these third world countries that have become hotbeds of anti-Semitism. We've always stood strong. We'll continue to stand strong, and that's just the way it's going to be. We're proud in Florida that there's more Orthodox Jews moving into my state than is moving into any other state in the United States. They would not be doing that if they didn't see policies that were very positive.
Although my grandchildren can't vote yet, what would you say directly to them? They're 7.
We are going to defeat the scourge of anti-Semitism. I think we in Florida, I mean, you look, we've had people that have moved from like New York because if they have a kippah on, they get attacked and then the people don't get prosecuted. I could tell you, you do that in Florida, you're ending up in jail. We're going to hold you accountable. And so we're going to continue to work for that. And as president, we're going to lean in against anti-Semitism and continue to make sure that we recognize it in all of its forms, including with things like the BDS movement.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Laura. Quick follow-up for you, Governor. As president, would you maintain that unit in the Department of Justice that targets so-called hate groups?
I'm not exactly sure what it is. I mean, clearly, if you have people that are being targeted on their race or religion, that's something that we need to snuff out, and we will want to do it. I think the problem with this in FBI and justice is they view anybody on this other side of the political spectrum as a potential target. There was a memo in one of the FBI field offices that said, oh, these Catholics that are attending Latin Mass are potentially a problem. No. That is outrageous that they're doing that. They will say, we have a parents' rights group in Florida called Moms for Liberty, and you have some of these left-wing groups have called them a hate group. They are not hate group. Just because they disagree with you, just because they're advocating conservative positions, you don't label them a hate group. So I think those agencies have gone way out of bounds. We will use it to go against racial discrimination. We will use it to go against religious discrimination. But we are not going to let the FBI and the DOJ be weaponized against political factions that they disagree with. That is wrong, and that is an impulse that has really been nurtured over the last decade or so in Washington, in the bowels of the bureaucracy. These are all people that think one way. They have these views on the left, and they think if you disagree with that, somehow you're a threat to society. That is wrong, and that will not be tolerated in my administration.
Next question from Sean Van Engelen.
Governor, it's great to have you back in the state of New Hampshire. Mental health is a serious issue in this country, and in the state of Florida, you have the Baker Act. Could you specifically talk about your plan on how you can help the mental health crisis in this country?
Sure. Well, one, I think we should recognize that mental health got a lot worse because of COVID lockdowns, COVID school closures, and COVID restrictions. I mean, that's just the reality. And we're seeing the carnage now. The media is now saying, oh, some of these kids are doing poorly. Yeah, you guys were the one that were attacking me when I had the schools open. You were saying it was wrong to have the schools open. We also have more deaths of despair. We have more overdose deaths. We have more suicides. Part of that was COVID, but I think that happened before COVID. I think with the way our society has become fragmented, I think people end up more lonely than they used to be, in prior years. I think it's a problem with our kids on social media all the time. That is not healthy to have your face buried in a phone for 7 or 8 hours a day. What we've done in Florida is we've made a focus on first responders, on veterans, on people that have suffered post-traumatic stress. We have mobile units that can go respond when there's a mental health crisis in society. It's a complicated issue, but I think what we've done now, Baker Act basically is an involuntary commitment. It has been said that if you go back to like the 50s and you compare the institutionalized population to today, there were way more people institutionalized back then than there are now. And so what has changed? Well, the laws have gotten more liberal. And the question is, has that been good? Here's what I'll tell you just from dealing with law enforcement, because we're a very pro-law enforcement state. I think what a lot of police officers would tell you is a lot of the people that go through the system have mental health problems. And so the question is, you know, are we going to treat that in ways that's a little bit more recognizing that these people, you know, need assistance, they need intervention, or are we just going to kind of let it go and you end up having homeless, you end up having crime, you end up having all these things? You know, the federal government has a role, but I think a lot of that is bottom up. I think it's going to be localities and states. You know, my wife launched a program as First Lady of Florida for the schools to try to take the stigma out of, you know, needing help for your mental health, because it's not always an easy thing to do for somebody that may be 13, 14, 15 years old. So she's created a program where they're trying to be, we call it building resiliency in young people. And it's actually been pretty successful. There have been more people that have gone into it. But I think this is a problem that's going to continue to be an issue in this society. We've invested a lot of resources in Florida. We've tried different techniques. Some of them have worked well. Some of them have needed an adjustment. But this problem is not going away. And then finally, I'll say with veterans. You know, when I was in Iraq, the one thing I noticed was you'd have veterans who had been active duty who had done multiple deployments. So I was in Iraq in 2007. We had guys that had been in Iraq and Afghanistan since they were 18 more than they've been in the United States. That's not normal to be going through things like that because we didn't have a draft. And so what would happen is people would come back from Iraq or Afghanistan. We were good at seeing the visible wounds of war. Someone lost an arm, someone lost a leg, and the community would rally and people would rally. We were not as good at understanding the invisible wounds of war. People that are suffering from things like post-traumatic stress. So one of the things that we've done in Florida is really work to mobilize ways to treat those veterans apart from just pumping them with pharmaceuticals. That's what's done. It hasn't been effective for many. So we have programs where a veteran suffering from post-traumatic stress can get a specially trained service dog. I'll tell you, when they do that, the suicide rate goes down pretty dramatically. So we need to be embracing things like that. We cannot have a situation in which 22 veterans are committing suicide every single day.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next question coming from the online world. Jerry Yang asks, what are your thoughts on the peaceful transfer of power? Would you ever deny the results of an election that you lost? And are you willing to say that January 6th was a violent attack on our Capitol that Donald Trump encouraged?
So I think that, yes, we will have a peaceful transition of power. We did that as governor. We'll do it as president. So you can set your clock to January 20th, 2025. I will assume the reins from Joe Biden. We will serve 4 great years, get reelected, and then I will turn over the reins on January 20th, 2023 to someone I hope is a worthy successor. So you can just put you can just mark your calendar to that 100%. And so, of course, you know, no one liked to see what happened on January 6th. I mean, I didn't like to see that. I was down in Florida, you know, doing my work in terms of all of that. But at the end of the day, in Florida, we've shown how elections work. We have very transparent, efficient elections. We've banned ballot harvesting. We've banned Zuckerbucks. I do think it's important for public confidence that you count the votes and report the results. In Florida, how can we count 11 million, 12 million votes by midnight on election night, and then it takes California 3 weeks, it takes Pennsylvania 7 days? And I'm not even saying there's things wrong. There may be things wrong, but just if your candidate's winning the morning after the election and they keep counting, and then your candidate loses, that leaves a bitter taste in the mouth of people. And so let's do a better job with the elections so that people are going to have confidence in what's going on. Florida shows the way to do it. And if all these other states had just done what Florida did, you know, I think people would be much happier.
Governor, to Jerry's question, do you believe President Trump encouraged what happened?
So I think if you look at what he said at the rally, he said, go peacefully. I mean, like, that's what he said. So if you're going to say that he incited, you have to show how he said not peacefully. And that's just the reality. Now, do I think, would I have held that rally? No, I wouldn't have done that. But the reality is, if you're going to try to tag the incitement angle, you know, that's a very, very high legal hurdle, and I did not see the evidence to support an incitement charge.
Next question comes from Joshua Reap.
Governor, thank you for being here in the best state north of Florida. Appreciate your time here today. And one thing that comes to mind is constitutional rights do not stop and start at borders, but oftentimes with our hodgepodge of concealed carry licensures across the country, in places like New York, it's effectively impossible to get one as an out-of-state resident. But as I travel to Florida and other places, would you, as president, sign a bill that would allow for a national concealed carry of permitted firearms for responsible gun owners?
Yes. Live free or die, man. Come on. This is a constitutional right. You're here in New Hampshire. New Hampshire's been very clear. You know, it's interesting coming to New Hampshire for Florida because normally when I go north, the taxes go higher. And that's true with New England, except for this little place where you decided to take a stand and live free or die. So I appreciate it. But New Hampshire is very clear. Vermont is very clear about the importance of Second Amendment rights. And yes, states like Florida, we have constitutional carry, other places do. You're just living as an American citizen. You stop at like a gas station in New York, and what, you're going to face a gun charge as a law-abiding citizen who's just simply exercising your constitutional rights? That is not acceptable, so I think people do deserve that protection, and I would happily sign it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next question comes from Judith Elliott.
Governor DeSantis, Florida's Sierra Club recently gave you an F for environmental leadership. In light of this summer's devastating heat waves, do you regret signing legislation in May to prohibit Florida municipalities from restricting fossil fuel use or promoting clean energy?
So first of all, Sierra Club is a far left-wing radical organization. They are about partisanship. They are not recognizing what we've done. When I came in, we had a crisis with our Everglades. Our Everglades were drying up. We had massive problems with our estuaries, both the Caloosahatchee and the St. Lucie. People were asking for help, but you know what happened? You had big sugar companies that called all the shots when it came to Florida's environmental policy. I ran in 2018 saying we're going to change that. They spent tens of millions of dollars against me, and they couldn't stop me. So I came in and we fundamentally changed Florida's approach to environmental conservation. You now have water going from Lake Okeechobee down through the Florida Everglades all the way to Florida Bay the way nature intended it, and that had not been happening prior to me becoming governor. We've done billions and billions of dollars for environmental restoration, for Everglades restoration, and to clean water quality. And I've been recognized by groups like the Everglades Foundation, ones that aren't as partisan as Sierra Club, as really having been the father of modern Everglades restoration. Water is the lifeblood of the state of Florida. We have the best boating in the world, best fishing in the world. It helps real estate values. It drives tourism. We have to do our part to make sure we leave that better to God than what we found it. And so we've done that, and we've done very well on that. Now, in terms of the municipalities, no, because what they will do is they will say, oh, you know, you can't have a gas station here. You can't do that. They will try to do things that are not going to work for our economy. And, you know, I'll tell you the Sierra Club. There was a power plant that wanted to go from coal to natural gas. That is way cleaner to go to natural gas. And it sits on I had to be a part of this board that adjudicates it. Sierra Club opposed going from coal to natural gas, even though the emissions go way less with natural gas. Why? Because it's about ideology. They have taken the position you cannot burn any more fossil fuels. That would destroy this economy and it would destroy this country. So Florida's emissions have gone down dramatically because of using technology like some of the solar and some of the natural gas, but that has not been because of government mandate. It's because of innovation and market ingenuity, and that's the way we're going to do. But we're proud of what we've done. No governor in Florida history has made more of a positive impact on our Everglades restoration and our Everglades and our estuaries than me.
Next question from Christine Edney.
Thank you, Governor. How do you respond to people that say now is not your time to run for president?
Well, I'm not running for president to be somebody. I'm running to do something. I think 2024 is a hinge point in American history. I think I'm the only candidate running who can win the primary, defeat Joe Biden, and then deliver on all of these things that we know that needs to be done. So I feel a calling to offer myself to service. People say, oh, if you wait here. Look, that's not how I think. I don't care about what happens, in the future, holding office, all that stuff. I have the ability to go get the job done for the country now. I don't think we have 4 years to be able to wait. And I think it could end up getting a lot worse if we don't do something now. It's also, this is a republic. This isn't a monarchy. There's not bloodlines. Nobody's chosen for their term. You got to go and you got to earn it. And when you start talking about states like New Hampshire with the first in the nation, you got to show up and answer questions. You got to go to events. You got to be here. You got to show people why you should be the next president of the United States. Nobody is entitled to be nominated, much less elected president.
Thank you.
Governor, we've got about a minute left. I'll leave you with this. What's the biggest misconception out there about Ron DeSantis?
Whatever the corporate media says is a lie. I mean, so, it's interesting. I mean, we've gone, and part of it goes back to the question about the divisions in society. The media has always had, not necessarily local, but the kind of the national corporate, they've always had an ideological bent. Like, I get that. But I think what's happened in more recent years is they've put facts aside to do narratives. So it's all about creating narratives that can drive their partisan agenda. And so I can show you a fact that totally blows up the narrative. My press people can give it to them. They'll just ignore it. They won't even acknowledge the facts. And so I think our job as citizens is, you aren't doing the job you need to be doing as a citizen if you are accepting these corporate media narratives uncritically. You've got to know they're trying to sell you something. They're trying to push an agenda. What's the agenda? What are they not telling you? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? And in Florida, we had it the whole time. I mean, they attacked us during COVID, said things were going so bad and all this stuff. Meanwhile, I got people flooding into my state. It must be doing pretty good if that's the case. They try to create different narratives. So what I would just tell people is, come to our events, listen to what we have to say. We're happy to talk about our record and talk about our vision. But I think it's interesting, no governor was attacked by these people more over the last 5 years than me. I'm not whining about it. That goes with the territory. I'm a big boy. But they constantly tried to do this. And yet the result in the state of Florida was the greatest Republican gubernatorial landslide victory in the history of our state. That tells me citizens of this country know that they're trying to have the wool pulled over their eyes. And when people are out there shooting like straight, telling the truth, people do see that and they respond positively. And so we're going to keep telling the truth. We don't care. When you're over the target, the media is going to attack you. That's just the reality.
All right, Governor Ron DeSantis,
Hey,
thank you so much for joining us on Conversation with the Candidate. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to you watching at home. Have a great day.
Good deal.